Hey Food Slayers, it's Michelle here from foodslaying.com with today's public service announcement. So this week I released an episode on stevia, sugar, because we have a sugar addiction in this country. In fact, it's not just us, it's all over the world. But today's announcement is really about blood sugar control and diabetes. And there's a study that was released a couple of weeks ago that says that blood sugar control in diabetes is getting worse. Here's the skinny. So, fewer adults with diabetes in the US have well-controlled blood sugar or blood pressure now compared with 10 years ago. So we're talking 2011. In 2011, we had a better handle on this stuff. And, the authors of this new study are calling it a wake-up call. Here's the findings. So what they're saying is that millions of Americans with diabetes are at higher risk for major complications. Complications of poorly controlled diabetes include foot amputation, kidney disease, and heart attack. The findings are concerning. Of course they are. They're very concerning. There's been a real decline in glycemic control from a decade ago, and overall only a small proportion of people with diabetes are simultaneously meeting the goals of glycemic control, blood pressure control, and control of high cholesterol. And this is from Elizabeth Selvin, PhD, professor in the Bloomberg School's Department of Epidemiology. As a result of these trials, so they did a bunch of trials, and as a result of the trials, she says, we may be seeing doctors full of people. So as a result of these trials, what we may be seeing is that doctors of people with diabetes may have backed off a bit on glycemic control with potentially damaging results. So, this is concerning because we know that diabetes is a problem. It is a curable disease, but it's something that is really impacting our society. It's especially impacting people who maybe are carrying a little bit extra weight, and it is impacting communities of color because we know that food that's marketed to communities of color isn't the best food, right? But that's an excuse because we can make choices. We can make some choices. This week's episode on stevia was about our sugar addiction. We are addicted to sugar, and these companies know it. They want to keep us addicted, so they are creating these genetically modified alternatives to sugar to keep us on that slow and steady dopamine hit all the time, right? But that's not good for any of us. It's certainly not good for people who have diabetes. And if you have diabetes or you know someone who has diabetes, then this is something that we should be talking about. Because here's the thing. The American Diabetes Association released this, how COVID-19 impacts people with diabetes. There's lots of research to support the fact that people who are dealing with diabetes, have more complications from COVID-19. Here's a question. Are people with diabetes more likely to get COVID-19? They say there's not enough data to show whether people with diabetes are more likely to get COVID-19 than the general population. The problem people with diabetes face is they're more likely to have worse complications if they get it, not greater chance of getting the virus, which I think is true. Because viruses don't discriminate, right? They just don't. They don't pick on people who have diabetes. But if you have diabetes, because that's an imbalance in the body, and the body has a harder, time dealing with viruses, the immune system is compromised, and all of these things, right? People with diabetes have a little bit harder time fighting the virus. So the more health conditions someone has, for example, diabetes plus heart disease, it adds to their risk of getting serious complications from COVID-19. So, this begs the question, what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? Because I think that a lot of people get this messaging that, we got to stop eating sugar. Sugar is bad for us. And what that causes is it causes us to look for alternatives. We look for sugar substitutes. And stevia, although stevia is a plant, it is a perennial plant, which is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. So companies started exploiting this alternative to be able to provide an alternative, a 0-calorie sweetener, right? So they can put a little bit less of it in there and keep us happy, right? Because we love sugar. We're addicted to it. But the problem is, and I talk about this in this week's episode, is that the companies behind these new stevia products that are hitting the market, they're already in our food supply chain. They're being added to millions of products every single month. This super sugar isn't stevia at all. In fact, it's nature identical is what they're calling it, or genetically fermented. And they have to use these PR terms in order to get us to buy into it, because if they say it's genetically modified or it's non-artificial or it's anything other than, something that resonates with us, we're not going to buy into it. So this ever-sweet trademarked alternative sweetener that is being manufactured in a lab, genetically fermented, being put into millions of products already, you're probably already eating them. There's no data to prove that it's better for us. There's no data to prove or evidence to support that it's a more sustainable solution, because these companies, Cargill and Royal DSM, who are behind this product, are claiming that it's more sustainable because they're taking the production of stevia off the land, which is ridiculous because they're still, growing corn to produce the sugar to help in the fermentation process. So sounds like a bunch of greenwashing to me, and I think it's just important to have these things on our radar because our health is on the line. So that's today's PSA. You can listen to the episode on foodslang.com, and let's keep the conversation going because it's important. If I take the first step to admit that I too am addicted to sugar, because I think we all are, that's the first step, and we can support each other in our, recovery, so to speak. So there's that. So thanks for listening. Please subscribe to this channel. It really helps me a lot. Spread the word. Share this video with someone that you love. Subscribe to the newsletter on foodslang.com to get exclusive podcast updates. And until the next time, remember to eat clean, eat healthy, love your food, and I'll see you on the other side of the plate. Ciao.